One of the most extensive bunker systems on Obersalzberg is the Vordereckstollen or command tunnel, from which Martin Bormann's bunker is also accessible. Actually, two independent cavern systems, but they are interconnected. The command tunnel was the intelligence hub of Obersalzberg. All incoming and outgoing messengers passed through this underground center. The military chief of the high-tech facility was the commander of Obersalzberg, Obersturmbannführer Dr. Bernhard Frank. The head of the Obersalzberg administration, which also had shelters in the underground facility, was engineer Bruno Schenk. His boss and at the same time the highest authority of the party was Reichsleiter Bormann. Our entrance was via the access Vordereck, here on the left in the picture. Past the junction that leads down to the Hotel Türken, to the main tunnel, which we then crossed to make a short detour to the towers with the radio antennas. Then the systematic ascent through the command tunnel takes place in a northeast direction.
At first, Hitler's bunker was built. Then Bormann said, we needed shelter for his people too. And so the bunker complex was made bigger and bigger. We now go via the access Vordereck into the so-called Vordereckstollen, which is directly connected to Bormann's bunker. We are in an emergency access tunnel which is about 2 meters high. On the left is the junction connecting the Hotel Türken to the Berghof. 55 steps down to the intermediate level is the bunker of the Hotel Türken.
We go back to the access tunnel Vordereck, through which we entered the bunker.
This is the beginning of the Subterranean Tunnel. And we go from this level to the level of the main tunnel. The main gallery always runs directly above the sub-gallery. Here, the anteroom for the air raid warden. The walls were broken out here after the end of the war in order to be able to remove the big safes. Here is the crossing. Straight ahead is the observation tower with the radio antennas. To the left, the access tunnel to the bunker Vordereck, with command center and flight defense reporting center. And to the right is the last corridor to be completed, the connecting corridor from the tunnel Vordereck to the so-called Haus Vordereck, in which the administration Obersalzberg had its offices.
A quick look at the site plan. We are now at this intersection and first make a detour to the observation tower with the antennas.
Here are the 4 fuse boxes for the antenna system, which was located at the Eckerbeitel. These antennas could be raised and lowered in the shaft. Here is the transmission point, where the lines exit. Exactly here, at this place, where the stalactites are hanging, the cable shafts were led up through the massive rock up into the open air. Here is another access to the underground gallery, which was used for drainage and to accommodate all the pipes. but mainly to house the 50 to 60 centimeter diameter aeration and ventilation pipes.
Im Durchmesser betragenden Entlüftungs- und Belüftungsrohre.
The actual tower leading to the surface is divided into two segments for safety reasons in case of bomb hits. We have here a staggered staircase that goes up 4 meters. Then here is the access to the large shaft that is about 9 meters high. In the past, a round wooden staircase led to the top. Above, the exit is still clearly visible.
Here a picture of the cone-shaped foundations on the antenna system from 1999. In the course of the hotel construction, the remains of the foundation were removed in 2002. But back to the inside of the bunker.
Okay, we are now back at the crossroads, where we will continue in the tunnel Vorderek toward the anti-aircraft gun control center and the command center.
Der Zugangsstollen zum Bunkersystem vor der Ecke.
The door openings were enlarged here after the war in order to better remove furniture and other objects, such as safes. Here again are the machine gun nests, with 2 fortified openings for the guns and an observation slit.
The angular gradations in the firing and viewing holes were intended to prevent the penetration of projectiles or shell fragments.
We are now entering the typical U-shaped machine gun or MG defense system. Here already are the next MG nests. At this point, it is easy to see that a side tunnel should have entered here, connecting this bunker system with another one. Here on the left is that unfinished tunnel section, which should have led via the so-called greenhouse tunnel to the employees' apartments at Hinterreck and further to the Klaushaus settlement.
Hintereck und weitläufig dann auch zum Stollen Hintereck, der sich fortsetzt bis in die Klaushöhe. Here the
dimensions of the tunnel profile in the raw excavation can be seen well. And you can also see here the typical rock texture of the Obersalzberg, which, by the way, can be found almost in the entire bunker system of the Obersalzberg.
Fast im gesamten Bunkersystem des Obersalzbergs anzutreffen ist. Gehen wir wieder da raus, gell? Jetzt? Geht so.
We now go back to the main tunnel.
So, betreten wir hier die Gasschleuse.
First, we enter the gas lock, which was typical for the bunker systems of Obersalzberg. It was always located in the area where the access gallery merges into the living areas. The bunker was ventilated by excess pressure. When the door of the gas lock was opened, the air was automatically forced out. Here is a ventilation flap, which is provided with very light aluminum doors, which were always kept open due to the excess pressure. From the gas lock, a connecting corridor leads to the decontamination rooms. These were always constructed in the same way. On the right was the bathtub for washing off the poison gas, followed by a treatment room with medications for skin injuries. On the left, the passage back behind the gas lock, where we then reach the actual living area of the bunker.
One
of the rooms also stored equipment for air protection. For example, spare parts for gas masks, as described here in the 1944 inside.
In this cavern, the exploration team found numerous documents fragments, remains of medication and packaging, parts of gas masks and gas gloves. The finds, some of which were very fragile and damp, were dried and archived following the inspection. It is again a proof that for the looters mainly usable objects as well as building material were stolen, and that since the end of the war only few people had access to the bunker facilities.
We now leave the decontamination area and go back to the main corridor. Here, the remains of a knife. Oh, it's an ointment.
Es ist Hausapotheke. Moment, das müssen wir schon genauer anschauen.
Let's take a closer look.
Was ist das?
Was? Ja.
Directly next to the main corridor, there is an exit into the lower gallery where the ventilation system of the Vorderrecht or command tunnel was installed. By the way, Bormann had his own ventilation system in his bunker.
Let's take a quick look down into the lower rooms of the ventilation system and into the underground gallery where the supply lines and ventilation pipes were located.
This is the siphon drain for the bathtub. Directly above us are the decontamination rooms. Here is the view of the ventilation center into the subtunnel. So inside the bunker, these big pipes were installed, 60-centimeter pipes to supply air and 50-centimeter or smaller for exhaust air. Since the sewer system is sintered, everything here was underwater. The entrance here on the right was locked by a security door. It leads to the machine gun nest above. Normally, this hatch was closed from the inside to prevent intruders from entering the main gallery above. This area here is directly below the air bumper and the machine gun nests. On the left is the access to the machine gun nests. There are the climbing aids to the top. The MG nests were never occupied at that time.
But let's go up again, back into the main gallery.
Das ist festgewachsen.
The fragments have grown really tight.
Und die sind überall da. Schloss. Hier, wunderbar.
On the shards, you can still see the wonderful gold ornamentation. Here, parts of a coffee pot. The main gallery of the so-called command bunker has a width of 175 meters. The Obersalzberg administration and the SS were housed here together. Here on the left already, the command center is the anti-aircraft gun control center. Coordination took place from here. Let's start our explanation from the back.
We now come to the probably most interesting room of the command gallery, the Fura Flight Reporting Center.
Here is the large room in which three approximately 3 by 3 meter frosted glass panels were located. They represented the close air situation, the middle air situation, and the distant air situation up to Poland and Russia.
On huge frosted glass panes, which were equipped with a coordinate system and records similar to a map, flight and enemy movements could be clearly displayed with lamps mounted on the back.
At the back, there was an access behind the panes. The specialists were busy behind them. The reporting carriers were standing in front of the desks where I'm standing right now. Here was the transfer window for the messages. What happened here was all very secret, and the individual ranks had only very specific access rights. The doors here were locked, and the messages were passed in and out through these windows. The next cavern was the underground telecommunications and radio center. Here, too, the highest level of secrecy applied. The various departments were separated from each other by so-called partition chambers. The signalmen could receive and pass on messages from these intermediate chambers from the front or from behind. The windows could be slid upwards.
In these caverns, we also find numerous document fragments and teletype strips from the last days of the war. Time seems to have stood still down here since 1945. For us, the documents we have came across are an extraordinary find. In some cases, the signatures of the then Commander Dr. Bernhard Frank can be found on the documents. Everything indicates that after the bombing, Obersalzberg was left in a hurry. Even the last SS units did not succeed in destroying all documents as ordered.
Abteilung. Mensch, ich habe noch nie so eine SS-Stempel vor Obersalzberg gesehen.
The last room of this command center was the telephone system. Telexes and other messages could be sent and received from here. Here is the radio station, where you can still see the operating instructions very well.
die Bedienungshinweise sehen kann. Das ist jetzt eine Funkstation.
The manufacturer of the system was the Munich company Meilhaus and Bauer. Due to the technical know-how of this relatively small company, they were already in great demand in the 20s. They were regularly commissioned to set up larger loudspeaker systems and loudspeaker trucks at larger rallies.
Mensch, ist das interessant, da sind die ganzen Streifen von den Fernscheiben noch. Das Baugelände, jetzt mal ein anderer Ausweis.
The construction site, all the ID cards are different.
Der ist ganz.
This one is even still complete.
Kommandeur.
The commander of Waffen-SS, Obersalzberg.
Das Bunkersystem war immer durch mehrere Abteilungen unterteilt.
The bunker systems were always divided into several departments. Here we go over now from the command bunker into the part of the administration Obersalzberg. Chief of the administration office was the engineer Bruno Schenk.
Ingenieur Schenk war hier der Chef.
Here is the transformer room.
In der Mitte die Kabelzuführungen, die aus dem Unterstollen.
In the middle, the cable shafts with the accesses to the underground gallery.
Links und rechts.
They lead from here to the transformer room in the back.
Hier größere Temperaturen,
To the left and right was the ventilation, as temperature in these rooms were higher than in the other caverns.
Hier rechts dann die Räume der Verwaltung Obersalzberg, Büro.
Here on the right, the rooms of the administration Obersalzberg, office, recreation rooms, and sleeping rooms. These caverns were very damp, probably due to the lack of insulation.
Warum hat es verbrennt? Wahrscheinlich von den
Why did it burn here? Probably the fire was started by looters. This is very strange. One cavern is completely dry, and the next is extremely damp.
Immer so unterteilt, dass also links die Damentoilette war.
The toilet facilities were always divided the same way. On the left, the ladies, and on the right, the men's toilet.
Wir stehen jetzt in der Kaverne des Verwaltungsführers Schenk. Der hat hier mit
We are now in the cavern of the administrative leader, Schenk, who had a shelter here with his family. We're now in the rear part of the cavern of the administration leader, Schenk. Here, the command tunnel makes a slight bend to the right. At the end of this corridor, the connection to Hermann Göring's bunker was supposed to be made, but Goring, personally, refused.
speziellen Willen Görings nicht stattgefunden hat.
Here is also the entrance to the actual private bunker of the Borman family. Here, too, massive iron doors were installed, but they were removed after the war due to the shortage of materials. Next, we go down the main tunnel to the end. On the left side, we have a high-voltage cavern. As you can see from the insulators, the cables in these rooms ran uninsulated on the ceiling, but the rooms were well secured from the outside. Here we have an interesting cavern. The entire Obersalzberg telephone exchange was located here. The line shafts go down into the underground gallery. In front of the recesses on the sides of the walls were the large switching stations.
Rechts, ja, stopp kurz.
The underground telephone system of Obersalzberg had well over 800 connections. Here in front of us is the kitchen for the entire command tunnel. From here, the staff of the SS Air Raid Unit and also the staff of the Obersalzberg administration were fed. Following the kitchen was the cold storage room, which actually did not require any additional cooling because the temperatures inside the mountain was 7.5 degrees Celsius anyway. That is, if the caverns were not heated. This cavern was full of flour and sugar at the end of the war. Straight ahead, the unfinished breakthrough to the Goring Bunker, which was converted into a toilet. Here is the so-called casino. As it was called at the time, it was the crew's recreation room and dining room. Now, coming from the eastern side, here is the junction from the Vorderrecht or Kommandstallen into the Borman Bunker. The walls here are heavily covered with soot, because at the time, a smoldering fire in the kitchen made the bunker inaccessible for several days. The first room immediately on the right are the private caverns of Martin Bormann. Here first, his study. The lamp, please, a little more to the left. Okay. Following this, the living room. Here, his wife's room. And finally, here's the bathroom with a niche for the sink, and to the right of it, a toilet with hot and cold water. And finally, the bedroom with the safe, which was built in, hidden in the wall.
The
next room in the Borman Bunker, on the left, on the western side, the kitchen. Here, a fire was lit by looters after the food and appliances were taken out. Here, everything is full of soot from top to bottom. In the connection to the back storerooms, which were filled, as well known, up to the ceiling with food.
Here,
the second cavern on the right side of the Borman Bunker represents a curiosity on the Obersalzberg, the children's room for 8 children of the Bormann family. You can see very well that this cavern was covered with wood on the sides. The floors were wooden parquet floors. Today, the floor level here is about 10 to 15 centimeters lower than before, because the looters have removed both the floors and the substructures. Here are the children's bedrooms with 2 or 3 bunk beds. It's also very interesting that, especially in these caverns, the light switches, which at the time were standard at a height of 1.5 meters, are much lower here. The last room, which is preserved in perfect condition, was probably the nanny's bedroom, with its own connecting bathroom.
Die dann auch im Anschluss ihr eigenes Bad hatte.
Before we now go through the gas lock, on the left side, another cavern for the staff. This is where the employees' bedroom and washrooms were located. Oh, look here. This is still an original piece of leather. Yes, that's pigskin. You can even see the golden embossed edge. This was the dormitory for the staff.
Am nördlichen Zugang des Borman Bunkers ist die
At the northern entrance to the Borman Bunker, The gas lock is a bit different. The decontamination rooms were built a bit simplified here. Right at the beginning, on the right, is the bathtub. Behind it, the decontamination room, and at the very back of the room, a stretcher is still recognizable. Here, the U-shaped air bumper with a machine gun nest, as we already know it. We have today an outside temperature of about 36 degrees Celsius, or almost 97 degrees Fahrenheit, with almost 100% humidity. It comes in this area of the bunker, where we are already very close to Bormann's lodgings, and there is a collision of the warm and humid air with the cold air of the cavern, which causes condensation. We are now in the connecting corridor between the MG bumper and the staircase that leads with more than 60 steps into the Bormanns' house. Just in front of us, the specially secured emergency exit, which leads to daylight in the area of today's Eckerbleichel ski lift, about halfway up. We now go into this emergency exit and descend again to the level of the subtunnel. The long emergency exit ends back there at the bricked-up door.
In Form einer abgemauerten Stelle. Die Abflusswege sind hier völlig versittert. Das heißt also,
the drainage ways are here completely sintered. That means the water drainage does not function anymore, and the water rises already up to the gallery level. Shine a light on the floor, please. There.
Hier sieht man also die Mauer. Es war früher ein Schuttkegel, der nach außen.
Here you can see the wall. There used to be a cone of rubble there, which was then replaced by a wall.
Jetzt durch eine Drainage ab, die noch im Hügelbereich außen in der Lifttrasse hervortritt. Das wurde von der Liegenschaftsverwaltung vor einigen Jahren so gebaut. Links dann die Abzweigung.
On the left now, the turnoff to the staircase that led into the Bormanns' house. The staircase is made of solid marble in the upper part and probably also here at the lower part. There are heavy sinter deposits on the stairs here, but further up, the marble is clearly visible.
Vielleicht nach oben.
Please shine upwards.
Hier gehen wir jetzt ins Kellergeschoss des Hauses Bormann über.
The staircase now passes into the basement of the Bormann house. Here on the ground, the former air raid door.
Hier sieht man, dass also
Here you can see that even underground the material was not spared.
Hier der eigentliche Zugang.
This is the actual access from the second cellar room of the Borman house, which is massively bricked up. In the northern direction is a strong weather-related collapse. It is another basement room of the Borman house that has been leveled, but cavities can still be seen here on the left side. It is a strong weather-leading area, very damp. There are even flies in here, which can be attributed to the fact that there are still accesses to the surface between the rubble remains. Immediately above the bunker access in the direction of the Eckerweichel is a cellar shaft that was opened again and again until a few years ago and was used as an illegal bunker access. Here, our guided tour ends, and we go back to our entry point. We hope you have enjoyed this guided tour and would be happy if you would accompany us on further Obersalzberg bunker explorations on our channel.